Jennifer, it's great to see you. And thank you so much for agreeing to take part in this interview, part of our series for the Vaughan WIlliams Society. And you've agreed to talk about a subject which virtually every music lover in the UK and lots of people around the world know backwards, the Lark Ascending. And I'm wondering whether, as you were growing up, and obviously extremely talented as a violinist, whether you were keen to play the Lark Ascending, or did a teenager say, ugh, that terribly popular piece by Vaughan WIlliams, I'm going to steer clear of it?
Actually, it's as you describe. I was asked to do it for a concert. I think I was about 14. And I only just heard little bits on the radio. And so I didn't know anything about the piece. All I knew was that it was very popular. And naive me at that age, so I didn't want to do anything popular. And why should I have to do this piece just because I'm British? And then I came to the piece, I opened the score, and I fell in love with it, and haven't looked back since. And yeah, it's just totally bewitched me.
Can you, I know these things are very difficult to put into words, but can you say what it was that instantly appealed to you in that way?
I think for me, it was the harmonic language. It was the way the pieces it sort of fit together so beautifully. It's the sense of peace that attracts a lot of people, and it attracted me to it very much so. But for me, it was so interesting, that folky influence, that modal influence there. So it was the language, the melodic and harmonic language for me that I just captivated me. I felt like I was being connected to something that somehow had always been there.
And is it obviously it has been very durable in its appeal as far as you're concerned, and in a sense, a romantic piece with modal folky sounds in it, it ought to be something you get bored with over a period of time, but clearly you don't.
Yes, it just enables you to interpret it in a million different ways. There's limitless ways you can interpret the piece, and also listen to it as well. So I think that keeps it always fresh and interesting. So I never really get bored, but I am careful not to over program it, just because it's such a brilliant piece that I want it always to feel special, and I always want to give it something new and never to be on autopilot when I'm playing it. So I actually gave it quite a break this last year, because I thought I've done so much with it, and then now I need it to settle.
So is it clear that it was written by somebody who was very familiar with the instrument in question? Is that clear?
It feels that way, although there are some moments in the piece where he puts in these fifths, parallel fifths and fourths, and those are the most awkward intervals for a violin. To sort of really carefully balance your fingers, and it's a kind of renowned passage that's very, very demanding. But otherwise, the Lark Ascending is it feels like it's both lyrical, was song-like, and written for the violin. So that this sort of element of singing is interwoven into the instrument very much. So it's very different from the violin sonata, which is a nightmare for the violin. You think, did he know anything about this instrument? But of course, it was an important instrument to him.
Fascinating. But then we must think about Mari Hall, for whom it was written. And we understand that it was written after a very particular evening when Vaughan WIlliams heard her play. So he was aware of how she played. I mean, what would you think about Mari Hall's playing from the evidence of this music?
He must have been the most wonderful violinist. I mean, it's got this mellifluous kind of cascades of notes all over the instrument, and you think she must have really known her geography of the instrument. You get this sense when you open the page that it must have been a fantastic violinist, and also the range, from the very low note to the top. You do get a sense that she must have been a phenomenal player.
Well, she was known for her dazzling virtuosity and her technique. So take us inside, briefly, how tricky it actually is. It sounds easy. You've mentioned the challenges of the fifths, but just how difficult overall is it, both technically and interpretatively, because I mean, if she was ever criticized, it was because she didn't give enough emotion to her music making. So I'm just wondering what insights you can give us there.
Well, that's such an interesting question. I wish we had hours to talk about this, because we could go into layers and layers. But from a well, if we just talk from a more basic technical point of view, for now, it's yes, there are challenges with legato playing, with long held lines and sostenuto. So this sense of kind of linear sense is very difficult, I think. So you have to be very comfortable with the instrument, and also a sense of kind of effortlessness you need, with trills all over the place, and these sorts of kind of diving and dipping lines, which we sort of feel like we become this bird or this something in flight. So that has to feel very easy. So that's not difficult. That isn't, that's very, very difficult. It's not easy. But also it's much harder to put into words, I think. I'm struggling here to find the right words to describe the musical challenges, because those are very layered. It's structurally difficult. It's from an energy point of view, it's incredibly challenging to sustain a sense of kind of peace and a journey. And I think all of those things, balance, those are the main things, and the phrasing as well, knowing where to breathe, how to make sense of this very stream of consciousness style of writing.
I love that way of putting it, stream of consciousness style. But I mean, when it comes to the interpretative side of things, you've already said, you like to keep that fresh so that you can look at it in all sorts of different ways. So there won't be one way in which you can approach it. I mean, I don't know if you ever heard a recording of the Lark Ascending where you think, absolutely not. I will not countenance ever playing like this. You don't have to mention any names, but I mean, are there any instances of violinists who you think of barking up the wrong tree, which is a super pastoral expression, I suppose?
Are we being recorded? Can I be honest? Well, I'd say that mostly I really love to keep an open mind when it comes to listening to violins, because I think that it's personal, and every interpretation is valid. I will add on to that I can't remember genuinely who it was who I switched on the radio and I listened, and it just jarred with me, and it was more to do with the trying hard element. I felt this person was really trying to do something with it, and over kind of stamping their thoughts onto it, and I just felt that the real core or the honesty of the music had been lost. But that is rare. Maybe if I'd heard that same performer in a concert hall, I would have felt differently about it. But I think it does lend itself to all sorts of imaginative interpretations.
Yeah. So right, you've recorded it 3 times with orchestra in the piano arrangement, and then in the Paul Drayton's wonderful version using a choir. And I'm just wondering whether Jennifer Pike basically plays the same each time or approaches it very differently each time.
With these 3 different versions, I loved exploring these very contrasting elements. I mean, with the piano and violin version, it's very intimate. It's very pared down. You find that you're playing it in a more sort of it's a kind of chamber music feel. It's much more vertical with these piano chords like bells, and you feel like there's that. I love that part of this version. And that's contrasting with the to play with a full orchestra. That is a really sostenuto, really like your sort of flying on top of this bed of sound, and that is a challenge in terms of the balance, and so I definitely changed the way I play in order to be heard in some parts, and in terms of the balance, it's really different. And then in the version, Paul Drayton's version, it's like the violin is almost in a more accompanying role, because there are some words that from the George Meredith poem that the choir was singing in a few places. So I felt in a way that gave the choir more of a presence somehow, and so then the violin felt like it was the more abstract part of it. So I enjoyed stepping back and kind of dipping and diving in that arrangement. But I have recorded the chamber music, the chamber orchestra version with the Chamber Orchestra of New York. So that is a pared down version, a smaller orchestral forces. So just to be absolutely clear, I am yet to record the violin and full orchestra version. So one day, hopefully there'll be a fourth version.
So you've played it outside this country. I don't know just how far afield, but does the Lark Ascending travel well to some unexpected places, Jennifer?
Yes, oddly enough, Mexico, they loved it in Mexico. They absolutely, and I felt, this must be a culture that's sort of brimming with, more heart on sleeve kind of personality, in contrast to the buttoned up Englishness. But they absolutely loved the Lark, and I have a kind of big Mexican following, bizarrely. Lots of people writing to me about the Lark, which is wonderful. And America, New York, they loved it as well. But what other places?
Just if we take the Mexican example,
yeah.
What did they say about it that they loved?
Oh, I wish I could have had longer with the audience. But I don't know what it was, really. I didn't have any specific things. It was more just I think that it was very new to them, this kind of language. I wonder whether sometimes the harmonic, the folk-like influences in this piece, and the sort of, the sense of the 5 notes at the beginning, I find that this is something that maybe many cultures can connect to, but with Mexico, that's unusual. I'd love to, I don't have the answers, really. I'm gonna try and find out.
Well, there's a job for you as you take around the world, is to interrogate people in more detail about this. Well, we could go on talking about this wonderful piece for a long, long time, but I think we must actually stop there. And maybe in the future we will do a longer chat about this. Good luck with all your performances of the Lark Ascending into the future. Thank you so much for your time now.
Thank you.
And as we actually are talking just in front of Christmas, a very happy Christmas to you, Jennifer.
Happy Christmas to you too. Have a wonderful.
Thanks very much indeed. Okay.
Bye.